Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. This is our report. It is all about 6 sonnets from Rhymes on the Life of Laura by Francisco Petrarca, 1304 to 1374. Francisco Petrarca is a famous Italian poet and a humanist. He has the distinction of being the first modern scholar. He is also known as the poet who perfected and popularized the sonnet as a verse form. He expressed admiration for Laura in almost all of the sonnet. The Petrarcan's sonnet was admired as an ideal model by later poets. Si Francisco Petrarca ay kilala bilang poem writer sa kanyang kapanahunan, wherein he makes sonnet into verse version form or talata. He also wrote to his poem tungkol sa paghanga niya kay Laura. Petrarca, he is a passionate believer in the power of ancient literature to restore antique virtue, culture, and social order to degraded age. He directly young scholar toward ancient learning. His father wanted him to train as a lawyer, but he said, "I could not face making merchandise of my mind." Francisco Petrarca decided to then focus on studying classical author. He soon went on to become the father of humanism. Petrarca's contribution to poetry. Petrarca, aside from being the father of humanism, he is famously known for his collection of poems about his love, Laura. One day, while at the church, Petrarca saw Laura and immediately fell in love. He spent the rest of his life writing love poems to Laura. Even after he died from the Black Death in 1348. All 366 of Petrarch's poems written about Laura are collected in a book called The Canzoneri. It was written in the vernacular and many people were able to read it. Of the 366 poems, 317 of them are sonnet, which were rhyming poems that typically had some sort of an argument written within them. First, he met Laura in the church. He fell in love at first sight. Therefore, all his affirmation and admiration to Laura sinulat ni Petrarch sa kanyang poem. At hanggang ang nasulat ni Francisco Petrarca ay umabot ng 366 poem, which is 317 of them are sonnet. At kung sino man ang basa na ito ay maiintindihan nila dahil isinulat ito ni Francisco Petrarca sa vernacular words. Father of humanism. Petrarca is considered the father of humility because he combined classical European culture with Christianity. He also influenced humanism by writing about emotions of love. Bago tayo mag-proceed sa life ni Laura, meron akong tanong, for your own, sino kaya si Laura? Maganda ba siya? Mabait? Bakit kaya na in love si Francisco Petrarca or Francisco Petrarch sa kanya? But who is Laura first? Laura was the woman Petrarch fell in love with when he abandoned the idea of becoming priest. Laura is described as a divine woman with deep eyes, golden hair, and graceful movement like an angel. Kaya pala na in love si Francisco Pitorca sa kanya dahil golden hair siya, graceful, tsaka ang kanyang the way she act ay parang like an angel. The poem Laura by Italian poet Francisco Pitorca illustrates a man's obsession for years with a woman and her physical beauty, where he describes her as love of his life. Laura is a French woman who captures the speaker's attention but does not return his love. She is praised as the most beautiful and most intelligent being in the world, and his death creates an unhealable wound inside the speaker. And Petrarch praises the world around him and explains how he feels inspired. Most inspirational all of is a woman named Laura who barely knows that he exists. But Laura refused Petrarch for an acceptable reason. She was already married. And Petrarch realized that he has grown old. He still grieves for Laura, but he reflects on her memory and how it changed over the year. His memory of Laura remains young and fresh while he become a tired old man. Petrarch wrote books on infatuation, a brief passion for someone or something. Petrarch had a short-lived love for Laura, some young woman he saw first in church. This poem talks about how love attacked him and he was defenseless to it, probably did not want to ignore that love. But Petrarch, he fell in love with someone that could not love him back. Francis Petrarch, to be able to express grief over the death of Laura, an identified woman who became his ideal of love. That's all my report. The continuation of this report will be reported of my classmate Jenevie Soropia. Thank you, ma'am. God bless.
Petrarch dedicates this poetry to the woman who seems to have a little interest in him. The poetry is this: O gentle hand whose pressure rules in my heart, that closes all my life in little space. O lovely hand where nature and grace, contented in a sweet rivalry of art, soft fingers that like peers grippled and part, when for delight and casketed they trace a path of pleasure in each favored place, sake in my wounded breast where they make smart. O fragrant, fine and precious little glove, rich with your spoil of rose and ivory, was ever seen on earth so fair a fright, to hold so dear a prize awarrant my face. But see, of mortal things treachery, and this soft thief hath robbed me of my life. From what celestial fields, what vision fair, did nature draw this countenance divine, which should of heaven's perfection be the sign, and show on earth what glory dwelleth there? My nymph, what God is scattered to the air, in sylvan hands tresses of gold so fine, did ever in one heart such virtues shine? Through death hath wrought its fullness rare, in vain for perfect beauty he doth seek. Who hath not seen her gently turn those eyes, or feel the ardor of their bended ray? He doth that not know how love can heal or slay, who knoweth not how murmurously she writes. How softly she doth laugh and softly speak. My 16th year of sighs its course has run. I stand alone.
Petrarca's poems have one subject, and he rarely deviates from explaining his emotions toward Laura. These emotions shift from love to grief to bitterness. Petrarca rarely alters the poetic form of the poems. The majority of the poems are sonnets written in the style which would become known as Petrarchan sonnets. So the speaker is able to use the same form, the same subject, and also the same emotions. He is also innovative, imaginative, and highly creative, but unable to apply these talents to anything other than a lost cause. So Petrarch's tragedy is that his greatest skill is dedicated to the obsession which struggles his ability to enjoy life. His life is dominated by a love which will never be realized. So, the summary of the 6 sonnets on the life of Lauras by Francisco Petrarca was the speaker addresses people who read his poem. These people recognize the sounds of heavy sighs, which filled his heart when he was young and inexperienced. I hope that anyone who has experienced the love firsthand will be able to sympathize and pardon his mixed styles. The speaker has realized that his poetry has made him the subject of gossip and he is filled with shame. So this shame is the fruit of his clever ravings. And he also realizes that all pleasures he experiences are nothing more than a dream. And the speaker also begins the collection of sonnets by establishing the thoughts and ideas which will dominate the remainder of the work. The form of the sonnets are established immediately. The first 8 lines form an octave in which the speaker's problem, thoughts, or reflections are introduced. So the final 6 lines form a sestet in which the speaker advances his thoughts and it provides a solution or a resolution. That's all.